My name is Nassim Arrage and I'm the chairperson of Community Legal Centres New South Wales, and I'm also the principal solicitor at the Central Coast Community Legal Centre.
Thank you, and I understand you'd like to give an opening statement to the inquiry. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, look, firstly, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Community Legal Centres New South Wales is the peak body for community legal centres in New South Wales. We're resourced by a small state office, which is funded by the New South Wales Government and the Public Purpose Fund. Community Legal Centres New South Wales has just under 40 member community legal centres, and we support our members and represent them in a range of government and community forums to advance the work of community legal centres. Community legal centres are independent, non-government organisations that provide unique free legal services to the most vulnerable, poor and disadvantaged people in the community. I'm sure many of you here have volunteered or even worked at a community legal centre, so forgive me if all of this is old hat to you. However, I continue to be surprised at how many people conflate community legal centres and legal aid, so please bear with me as I give you a bit more background. There are two main types of community legal centres, generalist and specialist. Generalist community legal centres provide legal help across a broad range of legal issues to clients and communities in a specific geographic area. So for example, my centre is a generalist legal centre that covers most of the Central Coast region. It spans from Hawkesbury River up to Guandolen in the north. Specialist community legal centres, on the other hand, provide statewide legal help around a particular area of law or to a particular client group. Examples include the Refugee Advice and Casework Service, the Welfare Rights Centre, Financial Rights Legal Centre, and Women's Legal Services. Community legal centres not only provide free legal advice and casework services, we also provide community legal education to community and welfare workers and the public generally, so we can help people understand the law and avoid or reduce legal problems. The other key role of community legal centres is to take up law reform issues and engage in systemic advocacy to improve laws and policies that we see at the coalface having disproportionate or discriminatory effect on poor people, disadvantaged people, and those who are most vulnerable to social exclusion. Just a little bit about me. I began working in community legal centres in 1999, so that's about 17 years of doing this kind of work. I've worked at a range of community legal centres, including the UTS Community Law and Legal Research Centre, the Tenants Union, Marrickville Legal Centre, the Mid-North Coast Community Legal Centre, and now the Central Coast Community Legal Centre. As you can imagine, this has given me a rather broad and personal understanding of the legal needs of community legal centre clients throughout the state. So I've been asked to speak to you about community legal centre clients and their changing needs. Community legal centre clients are predominantly people who experience economic and social disadvantage. These include people with no income or whose main source of income is Centrelink benefits, Aboriginal people, people with disability, people experiencing family violence, homeless people, people in prison or on parole, young people, older people, people who are culturally and linguistically diverse, and people with low education or low literacy. The vast majority of the people helped by community legal centres are on income less than $52,000 per annum, and at more than half of these earn less than $26,000 per annum. What that means is most of our clients are wholly reliant on Centrelink benefits. Overall, I would say that the legal and social issues that clients of community legal centres face remain the same as they have for some time, and for the time I've been involved in community legal centres. However, there is a significant and rising demand for legal assistance due to several factors which I think are increasingly complicating the lives of our clients. These include increasing prison populations, increased and increasing economic inequality. In Australia, it's pretty clear that while the rich get richer, the very poor are getting poorer, with Centrelink benefits failing to rise with inflation and with many people being pushed off benefits and into poorly paid, insecure work. There has also been a contraction of the availability of legal aid, so the working poor may get cut off from free services for family and criminal law. Finally, in my view, government services and policies have become increasingly complex and difficult to understand. I'm talking about access to Centrelink, public housing, immigration, which all means that community legal centre clients, now more than ever, need a variety of services, including health, housing, mental health, and other social services to solve their legal and social needs. From research conducted by the New South Wales Law and Justice Foundation, as well as the 2014 report of the Productivity Commission into Access to Justice Arrangements, community legal centres now have a more sophisticated understanding of how to help vulnerable people who face economic and social disadvantage. We know that most people do not recognise that they have a legal problem, and people who do not resolve their legal issues face serious negative consequences, including poor physical and mental health, loss of housing, loss of relationships, and loss of employment. So let's look at what the Productivity Commission found when it examined legal assistance. Key findings were as follows. Firstly, disadvantaged Australians are more susceptible to and less equipped to deal with legal disputes. The Commission reviewed the evidence and found that efficient government-funded legal assistance services generate net benefits for the community. In fact, an economic cost-benefit analysis conducted by Judith Stubbs and Associates of community legal centres shows that for every dollar spent on community legal centres, the government saves $18 down the track. Secondly, although the Commission found that funding arrangements the Commission also found that funding arrangements for community legal centres and other legal assistance providers is unstable, short-term and ad hoc. More resources are required to better meet the legal needs of disadvantaged people in Australia. Thirdly, there are serious gaps in legal services available to disadvantaged people. Assistance with family law matters, including domestic violence and care and protection of children, is not comprehensive in its coverage. The Commission found that other gaps in civil law assistance, such as employment and tenancy law, can also have serious consequences. The Commission estimated that urgent additional interim funding is needed from Australian state and territory governments of around $200 million a year. Despite all these recommendations, the current government has not committed to increasing funding and in fact has decided to cut community legal centre funding by 30% starting next year. So in the face of chronic underfunding and with the research and findings over the last 20 years, community legal centres have learnt how to better target our services. We know that legal service provision alone is not a solution to the issues faced by our clients. Services must be joined up and wrap around. That is, you need to include legal, health, housing, mental health and other social services to properly address a client's needs. An example from my own centre is we recently assisted a young Aboriginal mother who was living in a tent in a caravan park, partly due to the fact that she had substantial debt arising from parking fines. Our lawyers helped her with the assistance of an Aboriginal organisation and a social housing provider to apply for a work and development order to reduce her fines debt and at the same time to establish her with permanent housing with her children. So we didn't just go in to solve the legal problem, being fines debt. We went in and identified a series of social problems which led to her legal problem, and we have worked to get her into decent housing and out of debt so she can now buy food for herself and her children. Importantly, she also now knows where to go if she has other legal issues in the future. In terms of, I've been asked to kind of address legal need, and I'll just say that briefly because I'm running out of time, but in 2014 and 15, in that financial year, community legal centres turned away at least 160,000 people. And a census of community legal centres conducted in 2014 shows that the most prevalent reasons for these turnaways include conflict of interest, or a person's legal problem falls outside the community legal centre's priority area or client group. And the third main reason is insufficient resources. So now I'll talk about how are community legal centres in the sector trying to adapt to this resource shortage. So in a sense, we're doing what we've always been doing, but we're also adapting our practice to take advantage of technology. So some of those things include, we're heavily reliant on the use of volunteers and pro bono, and that's, I think, increasingly the case. So most community legal centres have a large team of volunteers and work with pro bono lawyers to help them provide greater reach in terms of their legal services. We're helping build the legal skills of community workers to better identify legal issues and referral pathways, but also to help solve problems before they become legal problems. I think a great example of this is Women's Legal Services has now got a platform called Ask Lois, and Ask Lois is a website where community workers can register and seek legal advice from Lois, who is an online personality. But at the same time, the Ask Lois website runs a series of webinars for community workers across the state so that they can get skilled up in particular areas of law and know where to refer clients when they're experiencing those kinds of problems. Another example of this kind of work is Redfern Legal Centre, that, just as one example of what they do, work with local community workers to help clients with housing applications so that they avoid the pitfalls of, doing a wrong application or doing a more comprehensive application, so they're more likely to be successful in their housing application. It also means that the resources of the community legal centre don't have to be spent on doing those kinds of housing applications. We are increasingly using, web conferencing and teleconferencing technology to assist with the training support of our lawyers. And so, for example, we have quarterly training and more of our lawyers are now accessing those remotely. It means that we reduce things like flight costs and accommodation costs so that money can be more spent on direct services. Community legal centres are also, more recently engaging in private fundraising, and the Refugee Advice and Casework Service and the Environmental Defenders Office, I think, are excellent examples of community legal centres that are able to access this. But I think it's a lot harder for generalist or other community legal centres to be able to do fundraising on that successful a level. So we still need the support of government to be able to provide our services. All right, so I might finish it there and open it up to questions.
You said that for every dollar spent on community legal centres, the government saves $18. Does that translate into reducing the workload on the courts? By that I mean, do you see that the work that you do relieves the courts of sometimes having litigants in person appear in court?
I would say absolutely. So a lot of the work that community legal centres do is around like duty solicitor lists or preparing people to go to court. So when I say duty solicitors, they're not necessarily representing people in the courtroom, but what they're doing is outside the court they're running an education session and then providing one-on-one advice so that when unrepresented litigants appear before the magistrate or a judge, they're more aware of what they're there for, what they're seeking. They might have a statement prepared for them, and it absolutely reduces their time in front of the magistrate or judge. It means that the magistrate or judge is not having to give them advice about procedure or even sometimes, I guess, legal advice from the bench, and it just means more efficient time is spent in front of the court.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions?
I've got one. I wonder if you can tell us a bit about the indirect consequences of the funding cut. So if you cut funding and you have to remove a solicitor's position in a community legal centre, then all of that solicitor's clients clearly won't get legal assistance. But are there further indirect consequences? I mean, you talked, for example, about pro bono. If I can draw you out a bit on that.
Yeah. So I think the way I'd answer that question is to say community legal centres need to be of a certain size to run efficiently. And, you know, so losing a solicitor position is not just losing one solicitor. That solicitor is providing direct legal services, but they're also networking with a range of volunteers and pro bono solicitors to kind of enhance their work. So sometimes when we lose one position, we're not just losing one person. We might be losing, you know, 50 to 100 volunteers that person is able to leverage in terms of providing legal services through the Community Legal Centre.
Thank you. I think we've probably run out of time. Thank you very much for coming along today.
Thank you.